Welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate all you guys joining us again as we update you guys on everything that's happening for Major League Baseball's hot stove season. It's getting very active out there. A lot of conversations happening between the top level of free agents right now. We're even seeing mystery teams come out into the headlines as well. We'll get into that with Xander Bogaerts as well. But thank you guys for joining us. We crossed 950 subscribers yesterday. Really appreciate all the new subscribers we've gained. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, please do so. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000 subscriber mark. Let's see if we can get there before Sunday's winter meetings begin. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much. With that being said, let's start right off the top with Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge, of course, is the biggest free agent in this year's class. 31 years old, basically dominated every offensive category in the major leagues last year. And there's a lot of interest as to where he might go. Of course, the Yankees pretty much have built their entire offseason around him. If they don't get Aaron Judge, they don't really have a backup plan. What's their backup plan going to be? Going after Carlos Correa? That was one of the other headlines that came out today, that rival executives apparently believe that they could make a run at a guy like Carlos Correa. But again, they've got all their eggs right now in the Aaron Judge basket, as do the San Francisco Giants. Of course, they could portion that money out and go, a different direction with it, go after a shortstop, maybe a starting pitcher, bring in Mitch Haniger, etc. But there's a lot of options out there. And then, of course, the LA Dodgers. Nobody's really giving them a chance to sign Aaron Judge, and I don't see why. I mean, the Dodgers have basically controlled that NL West for the better part of 10 years now. They still have elite starting pitching, young starting pitching on that team as well. They're going to be good for a very long time. Now, are they going to be as good as they have been in the past? I don't know if that's still the case. Now, if they bring in a guy like Aaron Judge, they most certainly will be right at the top of the Mount Rushmore of the NL West for at least the next 3 to 4 years, especially with the core of Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman, Will Smith already locked in. Of course, you have Walker Buehler coming back from injury, Julio Urias, Dustin May. You got a lot of good pieces around that team. But they could use some extra support. They've had some injury issues in recent years, departures in free agency, most notably Corey Seager. This year looks like Trey Turner. Max Scherzer's left in free agency, Kenley Jansen. They're kind of in a turmoil area, turnover area, if you will, of their roster development. So we'll see if they can continue to replace those pieces with minor league depth, see if they still have that same success that they had early on in their success. Of course, the shortstop market is another thing to keep an eye out for. Carlos Correa, we mentioned in previous videos that the Minnesota Twins, anyway, have multiple contract offers out there on the table. The Cubs also have the Carlos Correa as their top priority this offseason. And I mentioned off the top, of course, that the Yankees now are supposedly linked to Carlos Correa. I imagine they've at least touched base with all of the major free agents, just like every other team out there should at least do their due diligence and say, hi, we would like to sign you. What would it actually take? At least have that conversation with those free agents out there. And I imagine the Yankees have at least done that part. But I think they're still trying to bring in Aaron Judge first and foremost. If he signs elsewhere, then I think they scramble and quickly try to turn to either one of the other top free agents out there or quickly turn to a big star-level trade. We'll see if they go that route. And then, of course, the LA Dodgers are losing Trey Turner. They could bring in Xander Bogaerts or Carlos Correa. On the Xander Bogaerts front, we were told today that we were told last night anyway, that Scott Boras, the agent, was asked by the GM of the San Diego Padres if Xander Bogaerts was willing to play anything other than shortstop. The conversation supposedly was about him playing other infield positions, not an outfield spot. But you got to think about that situation. I mean, they have Cronenworth locked in there at second. They have Machado there at third. First base is their only legitimate opening. Are you really going to put $30 million into a player that's going to play first base only for you? Do you rotate Cronenworth over there? Does that kind of give you an option in case Cronenworth doesn't stick around in free agency? Do you then pivot and trade Tatis Jr.? Do you trade Kim and put Bogaerts at shortstop? Whole different can of worms if that were to happen. Boras stepped to the mic today to kind of clarify the rumors that were going on about his client, basically saying Xander Bogaerts is going to be a shortstop in Major League Baseball. He is not willing to move off of that position. He doesn't see a need to move off of that position, especially with all the interest from other teams that absolutely have to have a shortstop this offseason. So I don't think they're willing to move him at all as far as to a team that's going to try to play him at first or second or third. He's going to be a shortstop. Now, of course, the one other surprising news today was that the Arizona Diamondbacks are actually actually in contention for Xander Bogaerts. They've had more than just preliminary talks. They've had extended conversations about what actually it would take to bring him into Arizona. Now, whether or not they end up going that route or not remains to be seen. I think that would be a complete shock. I think Xander Bogaerts, while he wants that big money out there, I think he's going to be able to get it from clubs that are looking to contend, not necessarily looking to rebuild. And don't get me wrong, Arizona's got a good young outfield core coming. They've got some good young options as far as the rotation as well. They don't really have the infield depth that you would like, and I don't really see them as a force in the playoffs, at least in the next 3 to 5 years. Now, of course, they could go out there and spend money like the Padres did in recent years for Eric Hosmer and Manny Machado, and then going out there and getting Juan Soto as via trade, and of course the Fernando Tatis hit on the trade that they got from James Shields years ago. They went out there and spent money to make that club better. The Texas Rangers, another team that's spending money to make their club a lot better. Corey Seager, Marcus Semien last year. This year they're looking to add at least one ace, maybe two to that staff, and they could be in contention. Maybe the Arizona Diamondbacks see that, hey, we've got a few really good pieces coming. Maybe if we go ahead and spend now, lock in that money. We spend the big money right now to lock in those rates and then have cheaper, or maybe front load those deals so that at the back half of those deals, they can continue to build around that core. We'll see if that's the way Arizona goes, but a very surprising turn of events to see Xander Bogaerts' name connected, not just preliminary to the Arizona Diamondbacks, but that they've had extended, in-depth conversations. But again, I don't expect him to go there. I think one of the big fish will end up getting him, like the Dodgers, like the Giants, like the Cubs. There's a lot of interest around him. The other news today is that Trey Turner, which we've pretty much been telling you for the better part of 2 months now, was that he was going to go to Philadelphia, and now it's official that he's going. Or the favorites are now the Philadelphia Phillies, according to most media members now. I told you this guy about probably around the trade deadline is that Trey Turner was looking to move back to the East Coast. Philadelphia was going to be interested in him along with Xander Bogaerts. Now it seems Philadelphia has made Trey Turner their top priority. Tells me exactly what they think of their chances to land one of the superstar free agents in this class. Tells me that Xander Bogaerts has taken a step back in that running as well. This resolution could happen probably by the winter meetings, maybe in the first day or two, but we could see some big fish fly off the market early at the winter meetings. There's a lot of momentum, especially around Aaron Judge, Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander, Trey Turner, to all sign early on in the winter meetings. So make sure you join us Sunday, 6 o'clock is when we're going to start our live. When the winter meetings coverage begins on MLB Network, we'll be live that entire night for you, going over the Hall of Fame Era Committee ballot. The Hall of Fame selections will be made that evening as well. Hopefully we'll see one or two names get in, but you never know. And then, of course, the rest of the shortstop markets includes that we were just talking about includes Xander Bogaerts, Dansby Swanson, Carlos Correa, and then Trey Turner. We've talked a little bit about Xander Bogaerts, but Dansby Swanson's market still consists of primarily the Cubs and the Braves. I don't really see another club really jumping out to that number as of yet. Maybe the Dodgers will end up getting there as more of a cheaper option to guys like Correa and Bogaerts, but right now it seems like a two-horse race for Dansby Swanson. Reports yesterday were that the Braves were kind of reaching their breaking point financially for Dansby Swanson, so maybe the Cubs have kind of pulled ahead there, but it sounds like they're still waiting on Carlos Correa first. If that happens, maybe they miss their chance to bring in Dansby Swanson if they're really that far ahead of the Atlanta Braves in those negotiations. So make sure you're not just trying to wishful think for Carlos Correa and then end up missing out on a guy like Dansby Swanson, who really would be a great shortstop for the Chicago Cubs. Maybe not the bat that you're hoping for eventually, but really has a great glove. Best defender at shortstop in Major League Baseball right now. He's fantastic. We'll see where he ends up going. Atlanta would love to have him back. Their core is pretty much set. They need a shortstop to kind of finish off what they've got going. We'll see if they're able to retain him. And then, of course, on the starting pitching front, Jacob deGrom, Justin Verlander, John Paul Morosi of Fox Sports was speaking on Hot Stove this morning on MLB Network and said there's a lot of momentum around both pitchers right now for both of them to sign quickly at the winter meetings. Same thing for Aaron Judge as well. The teams that are in the market for Aaron Judge are all clearly identified. Yankees, Giants, Dodgers, and maybe another team that could spend, possibly the Rangers. Rangers, though, are looking to spend money on starting pitching. Go ahead and cross them off. And it sounds like it's really coming down to Judge's hometown team, the San Francisco Giants, and the team that's become his home, the New York Yankees. Now, remember, Aaron Judge was a little bit of a late bloomer professionally. That's why he's hitting free agency at the age of 31. It sounds like he's going to make a very big impact on free agency. The biggest offer right now that we've heard confirmed in the media's reports right now is 8 years at over $300 million for the New York Yankees. I imagine other offers that are out there are probably more significant for Aaron Judge, most notably from the Giants, because I think it's going to take more money from the Giants to be able to pry him away from the Yankees. How much more? I'm guessing at least $5 million per season more, and the Giants can easily afford that after trimming their payroll down to $120 million in total salary right now committed to next year. Say they add $45 million a year in average salary for Aaron Judge. That still leaves them plenty of money to go out there and add to add one of the top shortstops on the market. Reinvest that money in the starting staff, possibly bring in a third baseman, first base. They could bring in Josh Bell, bring back Brendan Belt. There's a lot of ways they can go about this offseason. Aaron Judge would just be the first domino of that, and they have the money to go out there and spend after they get him. Now, it remains to be seen where he ends up going. I still think Aaron Judge looks most likely to go to the Yankees, but the other free agent that is expected to sign quickly at the winter meetings is Jacob deGrom. The Mets were expected to sign him early on in free agency. That was their whole point. They wanted to get this thing done quickly. They wanted to sign him, get things done so that they could move on to the next priority in their free agency. Well, they haven't been able to get him signed yet. And reports were coming out of the yin-yang anyway that they were very optimistic before Thanksgiving. Now that it's past Thanksgiving, other teams that are in the running, like the Rangers, like the Dodgers, feel very confident in their chances to bring in a guy like Jacob deGrom. Why is that? Well, you can clearly see in reports now that the Mets have already looked at a ton of backup options. They've had their face-to-face meetings with Rodon and Verlander and Senga and all the other top free agent starting pitchers out there. Of course, they have their own starting pitchers like Bassett and Taijuan Walker to bring back as well. They have 3 holes in their rotation, so it's not like they're going to just sit there and wait for the market to come to them. They're trying to be proactive in the market, much like they were last year. Think back to last year with Max Scherzer, Starling Marte, Mark Canha. Those were the names they tried to get done quickly, and they haven't been able to get deGrom done yet. They were trying to get deGrom done quickly so they could quickly move on to Brandon Nimmo and try to lock him up before another team is able to try to take him away, swindle him away. And so far they haven't been able to do it. That's why I think the Mets could possibly pivot to another one of their backup options like a Verlander, and deGrom could ultimately end up signing elsewhere. That's the other starting pitcher that's expected to sign quickly at the winter meetings, Justin Verlander. Once deGrom signs, that pretty much means that if he signs back with the New York Mets, then the Verlander sweepstakes come down to really the Rangers and the Dodgers. Dodgers make a lot of sense just because they're in a title window right now. Getting a guy like Justin Verlander would really push them over the top as far as the rotation. They'd still need to add some more pieces at the back end just to make sure they have depth there, but I really like the addition of Justin Verlander. For the Rangers, though, they may outbid the Dodgers, and they may have to because they were not a winning team last year. Sure, they added some good pieces. They got a really good manager now, fantastic pitching coach. Their front office seems to be hitting on all cylinders right now. We'll see if they're able to bring in an ace, but I would not expect them to walk away from the winter meetings without having one ace in their pocket. Welcome in, Caleb. Who are all the players you probably see 1 year bet on themselves type deals? We'll get into that in just a moment. There's a couple of them out there that I'll go over with you guys. But as far as the winter meetings go, just off the top, Judge, deGrom, and Verlander and Turner are all expected to sign very quickly at the winter meetings anyway. We will be live for you guys on Sunday at 6 o'clock. Make sure you guys join us. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. We've gained about 15 subscribers already so far this week. Would really like to see if we can push that number over 1,000 for the first time, or get over 1,000 subscribers for the first time. So if you haven't already hit it, please do so. Thank you very much. For those of you who are already subscribed, really do appreciate you guys for joining us. But to kind of get on to the next points of the winter meetings in baseball and the hot stove and everything, there's also been some chatter as far as the 1 year bet on themselves type players. To kind of answer your question, the Cody Bellingers of the world, the Joey Gallos of the world. Maybe there's some other players like a Michael Conforto who could look to try to make another claim into free agency. Another player who has already signed his qualifying offer anyway is Martin Perez. He's kind of a 1 year bet on himself deal. And why do I say that? Think back to 1 year ago about this time. Carlos Rodon took a 1 year deal plus an option year from the San Francisco Giants because there were questions about the longevity of his arm. Could he handle a 162-game season, be able to make 30 starts, not wear down as the season goes on? And that's why he bet on himself. Instead of taking a 4 year, $80 million deal, Carlos Rodon bet on himself, took about $22 million from the Giants last year, opted out of his contract, and now he will be on And now he's going to get a much bigger contract. We're probably looking in the neighborhood of $28 to $30 million annually for Carlos Rodon over a 4, maybe a 5-year contract. That's a lot more money than he would have gotten last year. It's said that he's seeking $35 million. So he bet on himself and won. Martin Perez could look to do the same type of thing this year with the Texas Rangers. Other pitchers out there who could bet on themselves anyway. Chris Bassett is 34 years old. I don't think he's going to be a bet on himself guy. He's over the age of 30 right now, and I think he just wants to get the long-term money right now, so I wouldn't necessarily consider him a bet on himself guy. Taijuan Walker has had injury issues in the past, got the qualifying offer. Maybe he signs back to the Mets for 1 year, or maybe gets a big 1-year buy from another team and is able to hit next year's free agency without the qualifying offer and bet on himself that way. Other players that are on down years, of course, Joey Gallo struck out over 40% of the time last year, batting average well below 200. He's been around a 210, 215 hitter most of his career, and it just hasn't looked good over the past year and a half ever since he left Texas. Maybe he goes back to Texas and solves their issue in left field, gives them a little bit more power, especially with the shift going away. Maybe he has a nice resurgent year, but he really needs to cut down on that strikeout rate, increase that walk rate as well. The things that he was doing with the Texas Rangers really seem to be working for him, and he needs to get back to doing those things. Those are what made him successful. Cody Bellinger, he was a former MVP. He's not really been that type of a player for at least the last 2 years, maybe 3 years at this point now. And I just wonder if he's really ever going to reach that level. If he doesn't think he's going to ever get back to that level of player, maybe he signs like a 3-year, $30 million deal somewhere. If he wants to bet on himself, maybe he signs a 1-year, 1-year, $15 million deal with the Toronto Blue Jays, the Seattle Mariners, something like that. Michael Conforto is another name that's been in the news recently, most commonly linked with the Seattle Mariners. Mariners, of course, already have 2 of their outfield spots locked up with Teoscar Hernandez that they just got from the Toronto Blue Jays, and of course the AL Rookie of the Year, Julio Rodriguez. If they bring in a guy like Michael Conforto on a 1-year deal, if he proves worth that 1-year deal and is able to go out on the free agent market and really cash in next year, fantastic move. But there's a lot of risk right now with Michael Conforto. He was, of course, had the big surgery last offseason. That's kind of what held him from signing on with other teams, plus the qualifying offer. At the trade deadline, there was a lot of rumors about him possibly being a trade deadline addition because they could sign him in free agency. No team really went out there and brought him in. The reason we were told anyway is that his health might not be all the way there. However, his agent at the time said, oh yeah, he's all the way back. Full swings, 100% contact. He's back to full practices. Well, apparently that wasn't the case because they're saying the same thing, that he just started doing that again. Why would you say the same thing at the trade deadline as you're saying now? That tells me maybe there's some other things that you have to worry about as far as the health of Michael Conforto. Is he really ever going to be that power hitter again? I don't think it's going to be. I don't think that's something in the cards. But maybe Michael Conforto thinks that he's fully healthy now and wants to give it a go and takes a 1-year deal a deal to kind of bet on himself. But we'll see where it ends up going. One other thing I wanted to touch on before we get into some of the other headlines from around Major League Baseball today is that the trade market is starting to percolate as well. We're starting to see some teams being linked with players, some other teams being linked with other teams, and I want to say this about all that. Take it all with a grain of salt. Every team right now is just doing their testing out, feeling out of every team that's out there before they get to the winter meetings next week. So you're going to see a lot of odd headlines. For instance, the headline about Xander Bogaerts possibly going to the Arizona Diamondbacks. Odd. Maybe it could work. Maybe this is the Manny Machado signing or the Eric Hosmer signing for the San Diego Padres years ago. Maybe that's in the same vein of what the Arizona Diamondbacks are thinking, but take it with a grain of salt because there's a lot of other better options out there for those level of free agents this year. A lot of the big market teams this year have money to go out there and spend they will. For instance, the Boston Red Sox, they've been linked to bringing back Xander Bogaerts. They spent a lot of money already on Trevor Story. They're looking at Rafael Devers and saying, hey, we need to lock this guy up before he becomes this year's Xander Bogaerts, where Xander doesn't really want to go back to Boston. You don't want to get to that point with Rafael Devers. If you lose Devers to, say, the Yankees, who are going to have an opening at third base next year, that would be cataclysmic for them. I'm not sure the Red Sox would be the same team for at least the next 3 or 4 years if they lose that important of a piece. Sure, they could rebound and go out there and spend money to solve their issues, but Rafael Devers right now is the top young talent on their roster. They have a lot of good players on their roster as well, like Chris Sale, etc., but a lot of question marks, especially when you consider injury risks. Devers is the one piece on your team right now that you do not have questions about their production for next season. He is entering the final year of his his deal. We'll see if they get the extension done, but that's one thing I would keep my eye out on, especially as we get towards the tail end of the winter meetings. If other teams start to call on him, if they're getting nowhere in those extension talks, maybe we see some movement around Rafael Devers at some point before spring training. I still expect them to try to work that out as much as they possibly can. I think it's only a last resort if they end up having to deal Devers. But thank you guys for joining us. Got about 16 of you guys right now with us. Thank you guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. But let's get into some of the headlines from today, shall we? Now, in case you guys are unfamiliar with what we do here at The Upside, we cover Major League Baseball, the NBA, the NHL, and, of course, the NFL. If you guys have any questions about any of those leagues, make sure you comment on one of our videos. We do get those comments. We will respond to you and let you guys know an answer. Kind of off the top anyway, the Pirates. Welcome back, Bush Girl. Kind of off the top here, the Pirates were asked about the Carlos Santana signing. Apparently, they see a lot of positive trends in Carlos Santana, mainly because the shift is going away, and of course, the veteran leadership that I was mentioning last night, that he's going to be able to bring in to help mentor those young players that are coming up. They're going to have a lot of good young players coming in the second half of this year and the beginning of the following year. So they're going to be looking for some winning baseball players to be around them, to show them good habits. And so this was a great signing for the Pittsburgh Pirates. One thing that we haven't seen so far is that the Guardians haven't been really tied with any big free agents out there, aside from the Jose Abreu stuff. Now we're getting some trade interest anyway in Sean Murphy, the catcher of the Oakland A's. Of course, they want to turn it over to Shea Langeliers. They're going to move Sean Murphy. He's the best catcher on the market via free agency or trade, honestly. We'll see where he ends up signing. But it should be a really good addition for whoever ends up getting him. The Rays have been connected with him. The Mets have been connected with him. The Astros need a catcher. The Cubs are going to need one. The Cardinals are going to need one. The Guardians are obviously in the market for him. That's a healthy market for the A's to try to trade one of their top players again. They traded a number of their top players last offseason, Matt Olson, etc. Now's the time we could see them move Sean Murphy. Of course, they have Ramon Laureano, another good center field option. Won't cost quite as much as he may have a couple years ago because of the suspension that he had. But if you're looking for a good center fielder, Ramon Laureano might be a name you want to keep your eye on. But what's your question, Bush Girl? Feel free to ask it at any time. I'm just going to keep going through these headlines until I see your comment there. We mentioned already the Padres and the Diamondbacks' interest in Xander Bogaerts. Padres were looking at him as possibly an infield option to play around the diamond. Diamondbacks obviously have an opening at shortstop. They could obviously plug him in, play him. Would be the best player on their roster right now if they brought him in. That's why I don't think Xander Bogaerts is ultimately going to go there. We already touched on the Yankees' offer for Aaron Judge, over 8 years. It's 8 years and over $300 million. And as I told you guys, I expect that Giants offer to come in well north of that. Whether that means another year or two on the end of that deal, whether that means another $5 million on that deal, I think the Giants' offer will certainly be better than the Yankees when it's all said and done. Even if the Yankees are able to retain him, I think the Giants will have the best contract on the table anyway for Aaron Judge. The one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that this kind of reminds me a little bit of the free agency of Barry Bonds years and years and years ago from the Pittsburgh Pirates. At the time, this was before the PED stuff, before all that with Barry Bonds. The Yankees and Giants were competing for Barry Bonds, and how often can you say the New York Yankees with George Steinbrenner were beaten out for a top free agent by another team? The San Francisco Giants were able to convince Barry Bonds to go out to the West Coast and be a San Francisco Giant away from the New York Yankees. One of the few times that has ever happened in Major League Baseball history. But we'll see if history repeats itself here again with Aaron Judge possibly going to the West Coast. We touched already on the Trey Turner possibly going. Hold on. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. We already touched on the Trey Turner possibly going to Philadelphia. I told you guys last night I would expect it to be around 90% certain that he's going to go there. There's a lot of headlines, a lot of momentum heading in that direction. He might be the easiest free agent to predict to sign at the winter meetings right now just because we already know the team. We already know pretty much what his market's going to be. Probably in that 8-year range, maybe a little bit more. Probably in that $25 to $30 million range, maybe a little bit more than 30 at this point. But it sounds like team and player are both on the same page, and this thing could get done very quickly. We are at, Wednesday right now? It may even get done before the winter meetings really kick off. Maybe they'll hold it off to really, upstage everything right at the winter meetings when we do get underway. But we'll see where he ends up going. Welcome in, Wee. Where are you leaning the landing spot for Judge will be? Well, I've told you guys pretty much from the beginning. I expect the Yankees to be the favorite right now. Do I think they'll end up with him? I think the other teams have pretty much fallen by the wayside. So if I had to, put a number on it right now, it's probably say 40% he goes back to the Yankees, 35% he goes to the Giants, and all the remaining percentage goes to the LA Dodgers. I think it's a three-horse race right now, which is why we could see that happen very quickly at the winter meetings. But I expect it most certainly by the end of the winter meetings, as we will know where Aaron Judge is going to go. We should quickly know where some of the other free agents after that, like those top shortstops on the market, that market could get going. And of course, as far as the outfield market, Brandon Nimmo is the second best outfielder next to Aaron Judge. He is the only real center field option on the market right now, and his market may take a little bit longer to develop, but other corner outfielders like Mitch Haniger, etc., could see them sign at the winter meetings as well, but we'll see what ends up happening there. We mentioned last night that the Don Mattingly hire by the Toronto Blue Jays as their bench coach. Interesting note is that John Schneider grew up as a Yankee fan, idolizing Don Mattingly in New York anyway, and now he gets to have him as his bench coach. Very good bench coach to bring in, and I think John Schneider will have no trouble listening to his former favorite player and Don Mattingly for his advice and any type of tutelage that he can give him, since this will be the first full season John Schneider will be a manager in Major League Baseball. As I said, let's kind of run down the rest of the headlines. The Mets, of course, are trying to rebuild their bullpen. Put a video out yesterday about Adam Ottavino. The Mets are really trying to bring him back. Ottavino wants a multi-year deal. We actually saw him on MLB Network the other day anyway. He was on MLB Now, and we'll see where he ends up going, but it sounds like he wants a multi-year offer, and he has earned one. I mean, 2.09 ERA, nothing to sneeze at. He did have a couple of tough years at the second and third year of his last big multi-year contract, which is why you can understand why the Mets want to keep it to a one-year deal. Will the Rangers get a starting pitcher through trade? Any rumors on that front? Well, we put a video out the other day about Duran and Smith having some good trade value, a lot of trade interest out there in their market. I'm not sure if they'll go the trade route for a starting pitcher. They may go the trade route to fill their other holes in their team. For instance, they need a left fielder. Duran, of course, could be plugged in there, but he doesn't really fit that mold as an everyday left fielder. He could eventually become that, but they've tried working with Smith and Winterball and as far as an outfielder, but I'm not sure if he's a fit there either. Other teams may value them more as middle infielders, and that's really where they should be. Duran should be at second or third base. Smith should be at short, second, or third. Good infielders, very good sticks anyway. Smith, more of a contact hitter, has a little bit of a pop. Duran has a lot of pop in that bat, not necessarily as good of a contact hitter as Smith is, but both are still under 6 years of control anyway for wherever they end up going. They are going to be highly sought after pieces in a trade, any team that's wanting to trade with the Rangers. But I do think they're going to try to add a left fielder. I think they're going to try to add a closer, maybe some bullpen pieces there. They may even look to trade a guy like Dane Dunning, who's pitched well for them, reasonably well, but he's still very young and isn't quite getting the numbers that they were hoping for. They were hoping he would come in there and be a number 2, 3 type starter. His performance on the field, though, has been more of a late for maybe a fifth rotation or fifth starter in a rotation. Excuse me. Who's on first? I think Senga's a perfect fit for the Giants. I think so too. I think he's a perfect fit for a lot of teams, though, and I'm wondering if the Giants might miss the boat because they might be waiting for the Aaron Judge news first and then go with the starting pitcher, or if they don't get Aaron Judge, then they quickly try to bring back Rodon instead of Senga. But Senga's got a lot of teams in his market. I think the Rangers are going to try to walk away with 2 of the top pitchers on the market, probably a DeGrom or a Verlander or Rodon, and then maybe Senga as the second piece, or maybe they go with a Chris Bassett. We'll see which way they go, but the Rangers are expected to walk away with at least one ace. You got to figure the Mets are going to walk away with a DeGrom or a Verlander. Dodgers are also in there for that for the starting pitching. And remember, the Dodgers have a wealth of money to spend this offseason. They could, of course, try to save some of it for Shohei Ohtani next year. That's what the industry seems to think, that they prefer Shohei Ohtani a little bit more than they do Aaron Judge. But we'll see which way they go. I think that the Dodgers could very well spend a ton of money this year and then spend a whole bunch more money next season. I don't see any reason why teams should be, or that reports are saying that they're shying away from free agents. I don't see that happening at all. I mean, they saved $100 million in payroll from what they did last year. Even if they bring in Shohei Ohtani at $50 million, $55 million a year, that's still $45 million less than what was on their payroll last year, and yet they're still going to have more contracts expire next year. they're going to have money to spend. So I'm not sure why the narrative is out there that maybe they're trying to keep their powder dry for next year. That hasn't worked in other sports. I'm a Dallas Mavericks fan in basketball. Dallas Mavericks, for what? The year after they won their title, they tried to keep their powder dry to sign the top free agents out there, and it never really happened. You can't really plan on that happening. And sure, they're an LA market team, and it's different than Dallas, but you can't plan for that future and forego your current team. That strategy almost never works. Some of the other free agents that the Mets are having to deal with in their bullpen, of course, Joely Rodriguez has already left and signed with the Boston Red Sox. Trevor Williams, Seth Lugo, who they haven't even had any contact with this offseason so far, a little bit surprising there, and Trevor Merritt have all hit free agency, so they're looking to rebuild that bullpen on the fly. We'll see which options they end up bringing in. They've spoken with Tommy Kahnle. I know one of you guys was asking about that yesterday. Tommy Kahnle, though, has had significant injury issues over the last few years. Didn't pitch a whole lot of innings last year either. I wonder how effective he's going to be over, say, 50, 60 innings. Is he ever going to be that level of bullpen pitcher to be able to give you that many innings again? That's why I think the commitment for a guy like Tommy Kahnle, while effective, may only cost you $2, $3, $4 million in guarantees, and then maybe have incentives on the back end. But again, are you really going to be willing to invest that level of money, as great as that production is, when he's only available for 15 innings a year? I don't know. We already touched a little bit on the Guardians showing interest in Sean Murphy. Remember, the Rays have shown interest before as well. A lot of teams in on his market. Mariners made the Gott signing official. One interesting note about the Houston Astros is that they don't have a general manager. Jim Crane, the owner, is basically functioning as their team GM right now. However, he has a wealth of baseball guys around him that are at least advising him. Jeff Bagwell, the Hall of Famer, is at least in regular meetings right now. What capacity is unknown as far as what his involvement in those meetings is, but he is certainly basically the right hand right now for Jim Crane as far as advising him on where to go, how things are done, etc. He hasn't been a general manager before either, so again, we'll see how this works out. They may end up overpaying for free agents. I mean, they just gave a 3-year deal worth $20 million essentially per year to Jose Abreu, while a great player is going to be aging rather rapidly. I mean, he's 36 years old. It'll take him through his age 39 season. All signs seem to point to that he's be a great sign, at least right now, and he fits what the Astros are really looking for. Kind of picture him as Michael Brantley from years ago, that type of a fit. But again, the Astros, with no GM, you don't really have anybody there who knows these types of negotiations and how they work, what to really look for on those scouting reports. Jim Crane, as an owner, I'm sure has had some involvement in a lot of these meetings in the past, but it's not the same, and it never will be. We'll see how things end up working out. The other news anyway from the Houston Astros is that they have finally scheduled a meeting, at least, with Wilson Contreras. Remember, Jim Crane and James Click did not see eye to eye on Wilson Contreras, and that was part of the reason why James Click is no longer around. That, and of course, being slapped in the face and basically given a 1-year, or was basically slapped in the face with a 1-year offer after winning the World Series, basically saying, "Hey, you're a nice piece of this organization, but we don't think you're integral to an integral piece of this organization's success." And James Click did the right thing, moving on and just saying, "Thank you very much. I'll take my success and leave." And we should see his name floated around as a GM, maybe even a president of baseball ops somewhere fairly soon. But maybe he signs on as a senior advisor somewhere, at least in the time for the time being. But Jeff Bagwell is certainly helping out Jim Crane right now. They're looking at bringing in a catcher. We'll see which catcher they end up going with. They've been connected heavily with Wilson Contreras. They've been interested in Christian Vasquez, who was with the team last year, and of course with Sean Murphy, the top trade target out there. Mariners, we touched a little bit on their story right now, is that they're looking at one of these top shortstops, flexing them over to second base. That was with the caveat that maybe Xander Bogaerts is their guy, and they want to shift him over to second and let J.P. Crawford play short. I told you guys last night that was insane. J.P. Crawford is not half the player those other shortstops are. J.P. Crawford would be the one moving over to second base. Let's not get that confused. But the Mariners are still looking to add a second baseman. Colton Wong seems like a more reasonable target from the Milwaukee Brewers. We'll see if they bring him in. $10 million contract, I believe, is what he's on. But they're looking for a left-handed hitter to play their second base to play at second base. And of course, they're still looking for outfield help. They're said to be interested in Senga as well. Say they bring in Senga, that would make them have a great 1 through 5 in their rotation. And then they have 3 pieces that they're willing to trade here before the season begins. And Jerry Dipoto is known to be willing to make trades for prospects, for major league talent. He wants to do trades. and he already has Jesse Winker that he wants to move. Chris Flexen, he's already mentioned several times in press briefings as a player who's attracted a lot of interest. Marco Gonzalez, another starting pitcher, could be made available anyway. They have a lot of pitchers that they could trade at the back end of that starting staff. They already have 4 really good ones, and if they bring in Senga, that 1 through 5 in that rotation is lethal. The lineup there is also improving. If they add another outfield bat, pretty much sets their team up for a lot of success. Their team took a big step forward last year, making the playoffs for the first time since 2001. Hopefully, they get in for back-to-back years. Just as a fan of baseball, I want to see the Mariners be successful. It seems like they built something that could sustain itself for at least a few years. We'll see if it can go further than that. But they spent money wisely as far as on Robbie Ray. Luis Castillo, they got the extension done for after the big midseason trade. They tried to make a big deal and bring in Eugenio Suarez and Jesse Winker. Winker was thought the best piece of that deal. Not so far. Suarez has had a nice rebound to his career after getting a big contract with the Reds, basically being offloaded in a salary dump move along with Jesse Winker to the Mariners last year. Winker, though, basically fell off a cliff with his stats. He's always crushed right-handed pitching, not so much lefties. Last year, he couldn't hit either one, so he needs to go somewhere in kind of a one-year type prove-it deal to kind of another player to kind of answer your question, Caleb. Wherever he goes, he needs to have a rebound season before he hits free agency next year. We'll see if they end up getting it. The Mariners, one of the other notes that the article here points out is that they were not necessarily interested in the top of the market last year with Correa, Seager, Simeon, Baez, and Story. This year, though, they seem to be a little bit more willing to bring in one of those top shortstops. We'll see if they bring in one of them, but I don't think they will. I think they'll end up going the second base route. They mentioned that, of course, that Adam Frazier was there. They've had Robinson Cano there in the past, but that sounds like Colton Wong could be the trade candidate that goes there for second base. There's the Wilson Contreras to meet with the Astros news there. That's kind of all your headlines, at least for today. Remember, teams are basically doing a lot of their touch base with a lot of teams and free agents as they get ready to go to San Diego and begin the winter meetings. Once we get there to San Diego in the afternoon, remember, we will begin our live at 6 o'clock in the evening on Sunday and basically be live with you for that entire evening till probably 10, 11 o'clock when they finally go off the air, when all the news is finally done trickling out, when the Hall of Fame ballot finally, or the Hall of Fame results finally come in. That'll all be day one, and then Monday morning, expect us to be live multiple times throughout the day, the rest of the week, throughout the winter meetings, giving you guys short videos and then immediately going on the air live afterward to kind of give you guys the full breakdown of every single signing and trade that happens. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. You can see down at the bottom of the page here. Hit that subscribe button. You can even follow us on Twitter. You can see that handle there at UpsideSN if you want to be following us there. We'll post every single live we do there. Every single video that we do will be posted on those sites as well. Remember, YouTube isn't going to spam you with a whole bunch of, hey, they're going live, or hey, they're putting out a video. They only give you 3 notifications a day maximum from every single subscription you have from other people on YouTube. So make sure you follow us on Twitter as well, so you don't miss out on any of the videos that we do put out for you guys. We'll keep you guys as up to date as quickly as possible with as accurate information as we have at that time. And make sure to join our live if you have the chance. Drop us a like, say hi in the chat. If you're working, just say hi for a couple minutes on your lunch, whatever you want to do. We'll get you guys updated as often as we possibly can. So appreciate all you guys joining us over the last few days. And again, we finally crossed the 950 subscriber mark, trying to see if we can get over 1,000 before we finally get to the winter meetings. We're only like 48, 49 away. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. We really appreciate it. Welcome back again, Jose. I think it's going to be very active. Usually every single year, all the reporters are always like, pounding the table, like, this is the year we're finally going to have an active, winter meetings. We haven't really had a winter meetings, though, since 2019. Think back to last year, we had the lockout. Then you had the COVID. Everything was COVID, basically, the previous 2 years before that. And then finally, here we are. And then in 2019, of course, was the last winter meetings we really had right as the COVID was finally starting to get out there. And so this will be the first time we've had a winter meeting since then. It's been a while, so it's going to be strange to see all these things finally happen the way they normally do again. But again, this is going to be more of a condensed free agency period as well because the World Baseball Classic is going to happen before the baseball season as well. That's why there's a lot of optimism that the winter meetings are going to be very active this year, that teams are going to try to get their rosters set and everything done before the World Baseball Classic, before pitchers and catchers. They're not going to see, Manny Machado or Bryce Harper from years ago wait until February to sign. I think those days are gone, at least for now. And so the top talent is expected to sign, especially with the big payroll teams already being identified and already knowing which talent they want to go after. So we could see things move fairly quickly. The trade market, though, that's the one that's complete wild card. There's not been a lot of solid rumors out there. Basically, a lot of speculating by a bunch of sites out there. Bleacher Report has the top 14 names to watch for on the trade market. The Score or whatever has another page out there that says, "Oh, we got all these top 20 players to keep an eye out for the trade market." Don't buy any of that hogwash. For instance, the Texas Rangers, they say on one of them that the Texas Rangers are looking to possibly move Mitch Garver. Mitch Garver was injured. He's a good power bat. 1 year left on his deal. They still need to have a backup catcher there. They're looking to bring in Sam Huff to take that backup role. But what exactly is the point for the Rangers to trade a guy who could be their DH and a very good one when healthy, especially when they need to add some bats, not subtract from that team? I don't see the logic there. You're going to see a lot of Michigas like that out there on the internet. We'll see where it goes, but yeah, not exactly the most reputable trade sources coming right now. We'll see as we get closer to the winter meetings, some real headlines start to come out about teams being interested in players, conversations between teams about what it would cost to trade them. The only ones that we've really seen are the Rangers possibly be willing to trade Ezekiel Duran and Josh Smith. Pablo Lopez was mentioned at the trade deadline, has basically been a nonstop in the news ever since. Shane Bieber has been a possibility to be traded by the Guardians. I don't know if that's really going to happen either. Doing pretty good, Bryce. Welcome back, Bryce. Welcome back, Mark. Really appreciate it. Thank you for subscribing. I just saw somebody subscribe. Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Carlos Estevez. Welcome back, Anthony. We were actually talking about your Marlins the other day. Marlins having Brant Brown as their bench hitting coach. I'll put it this way: they need any type of production out of that lineup right now. That anything to make that lineup hit a little bit more productively would be good for the Marlins. The whole Philadelphia area is talking about Turner. I think Philadelphia land Turner any day now. I told you guys earlier, I absolutely agree with that. I basically thought Turner was the guy there. Pretty much since Jump Street when the offseason began. Xander Bogaerts was kind of a 1A, 1B with Turner, but Turner was clearly the guy that they would prefer at this point now. They seem the favorites to get him. They're the top priority, or he's their top priority. It just seems like the match is coming. You guys were asking about Carlos Estevez. Bullpen pitcher, Rockies, etc. Had a great season last year. Career best season. Of course, not exactly an ERA under 2 like around a 2 like an Adam Ottavino. When do you think the meetings finally pull off the trade? I'm guessing you mean Marlins. What do you think the Marlins finally pull off the trade for Pablo Lopez? The guy has been loyal to this franchise and needs to be able to win a championship with another team. Well, there's a lot of interest in him. I think the Yankees are waiting for the Aaron Judge domino to fall. Once it does, or once Aaron Judge stipulates to them, hey, make a trade for Pablo Lopez, bring in Jameson Taillon again, show me you're willing to go well above the luxury tax, and then I will talk to you about signing a contract for what I am worth. Remember the 6-year, $212 million contract offer that they gave him before? Basically a slap in the face. That's essentially what it was. The Yankees have a little bit of fence mending to do. They were able to do. Aaron Judge was basically able to let bygones be bygones, at least through arbitration. And after the lockout ended, they had to go through the arbitration quickly during the middle of the season. And they were able to settle on, I think, 21 million. But again, the Jays are expected to be interested in Pablo Lopez as well. They were talking with him at the deadline as well. The Dodgers were in on Pablo Lopez. All three of those teams could use a starter. Yankees could use at least two. Dodgers could use two. You feel like the Yankees are going to disappoint me by just signing Judge and no one else? Hal said he was going to spend, but I'd love to see it first. Well, Hal has been speaking with Aaron Judge himself, and whether or not they get him or not, I don't think it's going to be on Hal. I think it's going to be clearly on Brian Cashman, the construction of that team. I mean, they've lost to the Houston Astros repeatedly, at least in the playoffs anyway. Just got swept anyway in the most recent one. Their rotation is a little thin. They tried to beef it up by bringing in Montas, but at the same time, they traded away Jordan Montgomery from their depth. I didn't understand the move at the time. Thank you for subscribing, by the way. Just saw a subscribe. Really appreciate that. But I don't understand what the Yankees' thought process was at that time. They needed to make other additions at the team, not pass them by. And we'll see how they go about it this offseason. Maybe they make a signing in the starting staff, a big splashy one, bring in a Bassett or a Walker, or maybe bring back Tyone, and then go after Lopez, and then maybe another sixth starter, if you will, / swingman in the bullpen. You're making a prediction that the Yankees don't sign Aaron Judge. You think he signs with the Dodgers or Padres? You sure you mean the Padres? I would say the Dodgers or Giants. I don't think the Padres are really in the market for Aaron Judge. They like to do big things. That was what was mentioned in the article, is that A.J. Preller really likes to go out there and make big moves, and that was kind of the thinking behind their interest in Xander Bogaerts. But they like to go out there and shake it up once a year. They are in the market for a first baseman, so maybe that's where their big move comes this year. Astros are by far the best in the AL, too, and I don't see the Yanks catching up this offseason, but I hope I'm wrong. I think everybody hopes you're wrong outside of Astros fans. I mean, I live in Texas. I mean, the majority of fans down here in Texas, are, of course, Cowboys fans, etc. But when they do pay attention to baseball, granted, I am in, the northern part of Texas, if you will. That's where the Rangers are based. Rangers fans are primarily what you see in Texas. Now, when you get down to South Texas, of course, Astros are a little bit more prevalent. But the Rangers by far corner the majority of the market here in Texas, even with the success the Astros have had. Even though Houston is the fourth biggest city in the United States, I mean, it's the Rangers that have everybody's attention down here. What are they going to do? How are they going to spend their money? And of course, the Houston Astros faithful really see that and go, we've been in the World Series. We've won a couple of World Series. We've dominated this division for how many years? Why aren't we the number one team in Texas? And, they've pretty much tried to close the gap as much as they can. They're about as close to 50-50 as they've ever been. But it's still the Rangers that dominate headlines down here in Texas. No, it's not the Padres. It is the Giants. The last offer from the Yankees to Judge, 8 years, $300+ million was what was in the article. They knew, the reporter did not know exactly how much higher over $300 million it was, but it was certainly over that. We were told anyway that the Yankees were prepared to go to 8 years, $320 million. That was 2 weeks ago at the GM meetings before Thanksgiving. I imagine that's probably where that offer was. I don't think they went down in their offer to Aaron Judge at all. But I believe the market essentially is the Giants and Yankees, most notably, and then the Dodgers maybe with 15-20% chance to bring him in. You think Justin Verlander signs with the Mets or Cardinals? Mets, possible, very possible actually. Cardinals, not a prayer. Cardinals are not going to bring him in, not at that money, not at his contract level, not at his experience. If they're going to go for some aging veterans, they might bring in a guy like Brendan Belt in to kind of spell Paul Goldschmidt at first base. They might go an older catcher or something like that to solve their catcher issues for at least one more year before they try to go out there and spend. Maybe they go after Sean Murphy in a trade. But they're not going to go out there for Justin Verlander at 39 years old and give him $43+ million a year over 3 years. That's not happening. Cardinals do not play that type of level for pitching, and I don't think they ever will. Now, could they go after guys, at the bottom end of the market, or at least in the middle? Possibly, but they're not going to spend that level of money on a 39-year-old free agent starting pitcher. I don't think Judge is the first $500 million player. I think Shohei Ohtani has a very real chance to get there. Was there any rumors, headlines tonight? Well, we kind of went through a few of them. Go back over to them so you guys who just joined us anyway. Sean Murphy, of course, has drawn interest from the Rays in the past, the Astros, the Mets, pretty much any team that needs a catcher, the Cubs, the Cardinals. Now we have interest anyway from the Cleveland Guardians, there's a big market for catchers out there. The Toronto Blue Jays have a catcher they could trade as well, whether that be Kirk, Moreno, or Jansen. We talked a lot about that last night, so make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't been watching every single night. We'll keep you guys updated. But that's kind of one of the other headlines. The other one was that last night, AJ Preller was said to have been speaking with Scott Boras about Xander Bogaerts possibly playing other positions in the infield other than shortstop. Boras came out today in the media and basically said that's not happening. There's too much interest in Xander Bogaerts for him to play shortstop elsewhere. He will not be playing anywhere except for shortstop next season, wherever he ends up signing, basically putting a nail in that coffin. The other interesting news out of Xander Bogaerts, of course, was that the Diamondbacks are interested in his services. They have several good young outfield prospects, but it's not really certain why he would go there. Maybe they view themselves as a Padres situation years ago when they brought in Hosmer to try to begin the ball rolling down the hill, to try to bring in winning players. And Xander Bogaerts is certainly that. But I do think he's looking for the biggest contract he can get out there, but also he should be able to get that level of contract from a contending team. When you're getting comparable deals from a contending team, why would you go with a team that's basically been in the cellar of that division for years? Realistically, do you think teams like Detroit, Miami, and Tampa would ever change their philosophy and try to compete and go over the luxury tax instead of being cheap and frugal like they usually are? Detroit has not always been a cheap team. I mean, they have been in recent years just because they haven't been competitive. They haven't had the real ability to be able to go out there and spend money at that level. Of course, they signed one of the top 5 free agent shortstops last year in Javi Baez. That contract completely has egg all over their face right now. That's going to be very difficult for them to compete with that contract on their books unless Javi Baez is able to turn it around, which he could. This will be the final year for Miggy as well, so that money will come off the books soon. Riley Green's a good prospect there. They have Scoball, they have Rodriguez, so they have some pieces there. They have some good back end bullpen options as well. However, those are suggested to be available via trade. Soto, Jimenez, among others. There's a lot of things that Detroit could do to get back into contention, but they're not exactly going to bottom out again because they spent money on Baez. They're going to try to whittle it around the edges and try to sneak into the playoffs every now and again, but I don't think they're going to be able to compete for a championship, and I don't think they're going to be able to go into the cellar because of the way they've spent their money. It just, you can't exactly expect to lose 100 games with that big of a salary on your books. It just won't work. As far as Miami, they're never going to go out there and spend money like the big boys. It's just not going to happen. Derek Jeter tried and 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 tried to convince them to go out there and spend money. He went out there and got a free agent to be interested in coming to Miami, willing to sign on the dotted line. Nick Castellanos last year. Whether you think he was a great player or not, he's better than anything they've had as far as offensive talent in recent years. Biggest free agent they would have ever signed, at least in my most recent memory anyway. And basically they said, no, we're not interested. We'd rather go for Jorge Soler. We'd rather go for Garcia anyway. And just that was the straw that broke the camel's back for Jeter. How he saw this organization was just always going to try to be a penny-ante machine, try to improve around the edges, moneyball it together. When they really had a chance to go out there and win, they weren't going to invest the money to do it, and so that's why he left. Miami's going to have to fix that issue with their franchise before any high-level free agent is ever going to sign there again. Tampa Bay, they've actually changed their philosophy. We've mentioned last year that they were one of the final bidders for Freddie Freeman. They were at the same level the LA Dodgers were. They were willing to go 6 years and $150 million for Freddie Freeman. Fantastic first baseman, would have been a great get for them. They are interested in a first baseman this offseason as well. They do have a little bit of money to spend. They've actually outspent the Cleveland Guardians last year by a good $30 million. So Tampa, I think, was over $100 million in payroll last year. They've definitely stepped it up as far as their payroll commitments. So they're no longer, the bottom of the barrel anymore. They're not in that cellar. They're not the dead last payroll in the game. That, I believe, belongs to the Oakland A's, I believe, right now. They've pretty much got nothing but rookies on their roster, along with Sean Murphy and Ramon Laureano, and maybe Tony Kemp, who's a good base stealer there. But they've really bottomed out that salary. Jose, it'll come down to the Yankees and Giants. Let's see who has the deepest pockets. I think both are going to have no trouble digging for the whatever coin he wants to go to or whatever coin he needs. But I think it'll come down to how many years is ultimately offered, and are the Giants really willing to go out there and spend money after they bring in Aaron Judge? For the Yankees, it's Aaron Judge or bust. You lose Aaron Judge, your offseason's damned. You're not going to be able to get anything going. You're going to have an exodus of other top talent from your team, most likely in the next year or two. Donaldson's going to be gone. IKF's going to be a free agent. Rizzo could obviously opt out after year 2, I believe, of his contract. They've got a lot of question marks over the next couple of years if they lose Aaron Judge. And of course, it all starts with Brian Cashman. I don't think he survives if they are unable to bring back Aaron Judge. But again, I still think Aaron Judge is most likely to go back there. As far as all the other teams, I think they probably have like a 40% chance to bring him in. Giants right beneath them, like 35%, and then the Dodgers with the remaining. But I still think there's a fair chance that he goes to the Giants or the Dodgers. Bogarts to the Phillies is not sounding as much as Turner to the Phillies is. Absolutely, Turner is sounding like a fait accompli at this point for to go back or to go to Philadelphia, not back to Philadelphia. But it sounds like a reunion with his former teammate Bryce Harper is in the cards. They of course still need to add starting pitching as well. I'm curious to see which direction we go or that the Phillies go. I mentioned last night that Chris Bassett would be a great fit there, but they're going to need at least a number 3 type starter to go into that rotation. They needed some extra starting pitchers last year. That's why they brought in Noah Syndergaard. That's why they had Kyle Gibson. Both of those guys are now free agents, so they need to bring in some starters as well as solve that shortstop hole. Why do you think teams like Miami and Oakland refuse to spend money and be penny pinchers for all this Moneyball philosophy when it doesn't really win championships? Well, first, look at Oakland. They don't have a stadium. I mean, Rob Manfred for the first time during the World Series basically acknowledged, yeah, it sounds like Oakland's going to finally have to go somewhere else. That's the first time. Rob Manfred, the commissioner of Major League Baseball, said he doesn't see the future of the A's being in Oakland. Everybody else has known it except for him, except for the big brass in Oakland. They were trying to make it work. Major League Baseball incentivized the city of Oakland. They incentivized San Francisco, that Bay Area, to try to keep the Oakland A's there. And year after year after year, it was an eyesore on the league. I mean, how many times do you have to see headlines about raw sewage coming out of the toilets and flooding entire sections of the stadium and them having to close down wide swaths of the stadium because raw sewage was coming out on the bleachers? That's just absolutely disgusting. And the city of Oakland did nothing to solve those issues. They keep talking about wanting to build on a certain site. They got approval. They get permits, and then all of a sudden the deal's dead. That's happened like 4 or 5 times in the last 15 years for Oakland. They will be going somewhere else. I put that video out probably about a month ago, right around the World Series anyway, about how Oakland is going to have to move their team somewhere else, and Vegas is probably one of the most prominent possibilities for that, maybe the Montreal area as well, but I do not expect them to remain in Oakland for at least for another 10 years. I think that situation is going to come to a head fairly soon. I mean, how often do we need to see headlines of a Major League Baseball stadium with raw sewage for an extended period of time? Not just 1 or 2 games, but for months at a time. Disgusting. Absolutely filthy. And Oakland, I mean, the A's have to be completely disappointed with how they've been treated by both the city of Oakland, as far as their ability to be able to get a new stadium, and the treatment of their own stadium not being able to take care of it the way they should have. It's not a good situation there. As for Miami, every few years, I take that back, every 10 to 15 years, they have a really good team. They invest in that team, and then they trade away all those pieces. That seems to be the way they like to go about it. They're never going to play at the top end of the free agent market. Will the Yankees burn down the stadium if Judge ends up signing with the New York Mets? Well, if he signed with the Mets, that would be a shock. I mean, sure, Cohen is willing to spend any level of money in order to keep to bring that team a championship. Went out there and spent all that money on Max Scherzer last year, brought in Canna and Marte, spent all the money on Diaz already, is looking to bring back one of the ace-level starters, and then, of course, fill out that rotation as well. Money does not seem to be an object for him, even with as much money as he spent last year in taxes and on that actual team. He still made money off of the New York Mets and in his stock portfolio. I think he gained 7% of his net growth anyway last year. He's not exactly hurting for money, so they're willing to spend whatever it takes. But I don't think there's a prayer for them getting Aaron Judge. Where exactly does he fit on the team? Designated hitter? I mean, do you move Mark Canna to DH? Do you put him in center field for Brandon Nimmo? I just don't see how he fits on the team. Now, sure, he's a better player than Starling Marte or whatever else, but it doesn't really fit the needs for the Mets, and it doesn't really help their team building to go out there and try to then trade Starling Marte if you bring in Aaron Judge or put Aaron Judge in center, and then you don't have anything else, or you're not able to invest elsewhere. But they have a lot of other needs. Aaron Judge is not one of them. What team is more realistic between Tampa and Miami if Manfred decides to move a team to Montreal? The Rays or the Marlins? Neither. I think they're going to stay right there. I think there's a real chance that they could have seen a team move to Buffalo for a minute. And that would have been the Rays. I think they're going to end up staying, though, in that St. Petersburg area. Sounds like we could see a stadium built there eventually. Miami, I don't think there's any rush to move them either. But the Rays could be, or at least were thought to be moving to Buffalo last year, at least split time between Buffalo and Tampa. Or Montreal and Tampa, anyway. That did not end up working. It was the Blue Jays, anyway, that were splitting time with Buffalo. But that's not going to happen. The team that's going to move before any other is going to be the Oakland A's. So before you guys worry about the Rays or the Marlins or any of these other teams in struggling situations, the A's are going to be the first team to move. That's what we're going to see. Are we going to see any news on that at the winter meetings? Absolutely not. But we'll see how that chariot goes down the road over the next month, 2 months, 3 months, year. Appreciate all you guys joining us right now. Got about, 14 of you guys with us. So if you haven't hit that like button already, please do so. Going to wrap things up here in just a little bit. Didn't post a video today for you guys, but as soon as I get off here, I'll make a video or two about some of the headlines we're seeing about the Xander Bogaerts and keep you guys updated on what's going on. Tomorrow I do work open to close, unfortunately, but I'll still have our daily live updating you guys on what's going on with baseball. And then this weekend, again, winter meetings begin on Sunday, 6 o'clock. Make sure you join us. Make sure you hit that subscribe button at the very bottom of the page. It really does help us out. If you haven't hit that subscribe button, please do so. Thank you very much. And for those of you who have already subscribed, I know a lot of you guys in the chat have already done so. Just wanted to say thank you guys for making this year fantastic. We just crossed our 1-year anniversary on the 27th, and to get all the way to 952, 53 subscribers, whatever we're at right now, all the success is just thanks to all you guys for joining us and making this as fun as it has been to do these lives with you guys, to put out the videos, and to kind of finally have an outlet for the sports knowledge that I have and the fun that I have talking about it, and finally having some people that also like talking about it just as much as I do. I mean, I named this the channel the Upside Sports Network to talk about the next step in the sports storyline, because I'm tired of seeing highlight shows and highlight shows and highlight shows and more highlight shows. I get it. We can see a dunk every single day on SportsCenter. I don't care at this point anymore. I want to see what happens next. I'm interested in the trade deadline. I'm interested in the winter meetings. I'm interested in seeing, which, after a trade happens or after a big injury, what are they going to do to fill the spot? What does that do for his career? What does that do for his free agency? What does the financials look like for each team going forward? Are these... is this the beginning of their title window or is this the ending of their title window? Those type of issues. I don't really worry too much about the highlights. I try to put out every now and again, if a player has an absolutely unbelievable game, like Luka Doncic had a fantastic game against the Golden State Warriors. We're going to make a video about that one this evening as well. Just in case you guys didn't know, 41 points, 12 rebounds, and 12 assists, I believe, in that game. Absolutely fantastic. He is going to be the NBA MVP. Dallas absolutely has to get another star into there. He is the only reason why they're winning games. But we cover the MLB, NBA, NFL, and the NHL for you guys. And it's been a lot of fun covering it with you guys. So thank you guys for subscribing. It really has helped out. If Major League Baseball decides to expand, not relocate, what cities are most likely to get a team? For me, I'm looking at Charlotte, Portland, Calgary, Edmonton, or Puerto Rico. Take Puerto Rico off your list. Take the two Canadian cities out of your list as well, Edmonton and Calgary. Charlotte, Portland again, Nashville has been rumored about that for years. They've got a very strong minor league team there. I'm not sure if they'd want to take that away from them because they've had a lot of success with a AA/AAA team there in the Nashville area. But they've been a great baseball town. But for me, it's all about Vegas. Vegas is going to be the team that gets a team next. I think they want to try to beat the Major League, or excuse me, the NBA as the final league to finally make a move to Vegas. We've already seen the Raiders go there, the Vegas Golden Knights. Baseball, I expect to move a team there next. After that, then we could have a discussion about Nashville, Charlotte, Portland, and then after that, Montreal, and then after that, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver, stuff like that. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, if you have any questions at any time about your fantasy football team, should you start this guy? Should you sit him? Should you trade him? Should you not? Should you go after a guy? Should you not? Those types of things. If you have any questions about the Rangers or your favorite team or whoever, let us know in the comment section of any one of our videos. We'll try to get back to you as well. Can you see MLB adding a third team to Texas or Florida? Texas, absolutely, but I think Texas will add a third football team before they do anything else. San Antonio has been craving one for years. As far as baseball, though, which one will add a team first? Texas out of the two. I just don't see a team. Both teams in Florida are struggling, I'll put it that way, for baseball. Both teams in Texas are doing just fine. Well, I don't think it's necessarily a Major League Baseball thing that you have to worry about with Puerto Rico. That's a U.S. government issue at this point. The way that the United States views Puerto Rico as a colony, state, however you want to call it, that would, same thing with the Dominican Republic, those types of, that entire Caribbean island area, if you will. Those are things that are more government related than I think Major League Baseball. Those issues are going to have to be resolved on the government side first, and I don't think you're going to get government resolution at any point in our lifetime. But again, just to kind of wrap up, if you guys have any questions about any of the leagues, we put out a video about the Boston Bruins getting off to a fantastic start. They're 19-3, I believe, right now in the NHL. The Devils have gotten off to a great start. If you have questions about your team, basketball-wise, remember, there's the rumors about the Warriors being involved in a 5-team trade. John Collins reportedly being on the trade block for the Hawks. Jay Crowder wanting out of the Suns. Kyle Lowry not exactly working out since he signed on with the Miami Heat. The team getting a lot older ever since he got there. Boston Celtics, of course, going like gangbusters. Ben Simmons injured yet again for the Brooklyn Nets. The firing of Steve Nash. The trying to make the hire of Ime Udoka immediately afterward, and ultimately deciding, hey, maybe that's a step too far as backlash, so we'll go with Jacques Vaughn anyway, give him basically a 1 year plus an extra year as kind of a thank you for taking this horrible job. Kyrie's trade requests, Kevin Durant's trade requests. Mitch Marner's been fantastic, but I'm sorry, Mitch Marner's been great. Jason Robertson of the Stars, that much better right now. And yes, I'm a Stars fan. I'm a little bit happy. He's been fantastic. Do you think once MLB installs the international draft, that eliminates the need for international fringe? Or do you fringe? Or do you see NC or posting? I'll put it this way: once the international draft gets instituted, it's all about safety of the players. Have you seen a lot of the horror stories as far as the way they're able to get to the States from from like Cuba or anywhere from the international leagues? Remember the case for Leony Martinez, how he basically had half of his major league contract owed to coyotes and con men, that kind of thing. That's what Major League Baseball is looking to kind of solve first and foremost, is to make it, one, safer for the players. This is the one instance where Major League Baseball is actually trying to look out for the players first, and then of course distribute that talent a little bit more equally, instead of have the Yankees get the best talent every single year, and then whatever's left over goes to the other teams that have a lot of money and outbid other teams for them. Or the Dodgers rack up free agent after free agent after free agent after free agent on the international market. Make it a little bit more fair and equitable for all baseball teams to have the same chance to sign these players. For instance, the Pittsburgh Pirates, all things being equal, how often are you going to see the international free agent choose to go to the Pittsburgh Pirates as opposed to the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Astros, the Miami Marlins, because of their proximity to their home? I mean, those teams have a big step up on the other teams out there. San Diego Padres as well. And, yeah, the teams like the Pirates, the Twins, the Blue Jays are never going to have the same footing in those areas. But again, just to remind you guys, we'll be live with you guys tomorrow night, 9 o'clock, once again, go over everything that's happened throughout Major League Baseball's Hot Stove. If you have any questions, send us a comment on one of our videos. We'll see if we can answer it, maybe even put it up in the live as well. And we'll get back to you as quick as we can. And I appreciate all you guys watching with us tonight. Thank you guys for those of you who did subscribe during our live. We gained a few of you guys. Really do appreciate it. Make sure you hit that subscribe and like button if you haven't already. And we really do appreciate all the support that you guys have given us. We're getting closer and closer to that 1,000, so really appreciate it. I read the horror story of Puig, that even once he got his money from the Dodgers and whatever teams he signed within free agency, he had to keep moving because coyotes would follow him around. Yeah, there's some scary horror stories out there, and that's the primary reason why we're going to see an international draft. That and just to clear up the waters. I mean, international, bonus pools and all that are very murky and confusing as far as, the penalties, etc., which team can spend X amount of money, those types of things. And then, of course, just the inequitable distribution of talent when it comes to international international prospects, and the coast getting the predominantly the majority of those players. So hopefully it'll solve those issues in baseball. But again, they're trying to work on different ways to improve the game. The international draft, banning the shift, pitch clock, robo-umps. Hopefully, please give us robo-umps in the next year. I mean, they're going to experiment that with all levels of minor leagues next year, I believe. And hopefully by 2024 we get robo-umps. I mean, how many times do we have to see Angel Hernandez call a strike that far outside of the strike zone and that far below the strike zone? I mean, here's the very bottom corner of the zone. Here's the pitch. Notice where my hand is? Off the screen. That's how bad it gets sometimes. And I'm sick of seeing it. I mean, technology is involved in pretty much every aspect of professional sports now. Why can't we get that part right? I mean, tennis has that tracking software to tell where the ball lands on the court, down to millimeter precision. Why can't we have that level of consistency with major league hitters? I understand you have to adjust the strike zone because different players are different, heights and all that kind of thing. Take different stances in the batter's box, but it just needs to be a lot more uniform and a lot more cleaned up. Adding international players, this actually improves college baseball. You see more top prospects going to college. I don't think it'll have any effect on the college baseball scene or the Major League Baseball draft. I think it'll have a huge impact on that international free agent, whether or not they agree to, leave their homes at 16 years old, or whether or not they wait until they're 20 and then be subject to the international draft. Yeah, get your snacks, get your popcorn ready, as Terrell Owens would say. Get your popcorn ready, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, just to kind of let you guys know what we expect to happen at the winter meetings, the Hall of Fame announcements are going to be probably the first thing we hear about on Sunday evening, and then after about an hour or two of celebrating those players, going over the ballot, yet again talking about Barry Bonds and Roger Clemens and Albert Bell and Rafael Palmeiro and steroids and gambling and Pete Rose and all those kinds of things. Then we're finally going to get to the fun part of the winter meetings. That's when we're going to get the Aaron Judge signing, hopefully. We get the DeGrom signing, the Verlander signing. Those are all things I expect to happen along with Trey Turner signing with the Phillies. Robo-umps coming to the MLB, say in the 2030s, I believe there's a possibility. I think it's going to happen well before that. I mean, they're instituting it in the minor leagues already this coming season. I think there's a fair chance it's in all of Major League Baseball by 2024. At the very latest at this point, I think 2025, we will have robo-umps. I mean, just think of what it does aside from calling balls and strikes. Freeing up the home plate umpire to now notice, does that bat go all the way through the zone or not? You don't have to rely on the first base umpire, the third base umpire to make those calls, who have, while they have a decent angle at it, the best person, the best vantage point for that is the home plate umpire. Then, of course, being able to challenge those check swings. Maybe we see something like that in the future as well, where it's got to be clear and incontrovertible evidence and all those kinds of things. I'm tired of seeing, first base umpires who weren't even looking at the strike or at the swing path of that bat because they're focusing on what was happening with first base and calling, hey, that bat went around, it looked like it. That kind of a thing. I'm tired of seeing that in Major League Baseball, or asking somebody who didn't even have a clear view of it because the third baseman was in the way of their view of home plate. I don't want to see that in Major League Baseball either. What is your favorite pregame meal for the World Series, Stanley Cup, NBA Championship, and Super Bowl? Favorite pregame meal? Well, whenever I do any type of major sporting event, I don't like to just have one item. I like to go with like a smorgasbord of things, so it's going to be all kinds of different foods. Anything from like bacon wrapped pineapple to uh, pigs in a blanket to fries to kebabs, pork kebabs, maybe a little bit of steak. We might have some barbecue chicken. We might have a taco or two. Literally a smorgasbord. Some cheese and crackers, maybe some summer sausage. Maybe some chicken wings, really hot fire, some chips and salsa, pico, guacamole. I like a smorgasbord whenever I have those types of things going on, because usually I'm around family when those types of events are going on. I think the stupidest idea is the pitch clock that makes the game even longer. I don't understand the point. Pitch clock makes the game shorter. It's known to cut off at least 22, 23 minutes per game in the minors. It will shave off probably a similar amount in the major leagues. No impact on the run scoring, no impact on pitchers as far as their health, etc. Now, they did notice a little reduction in spin rate. Max effort guys aren't exactly going to have 45 seconds to recover after throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. So the pitchers that are actually able to throw that on a consistent basis and not have to sit there and take 5 minutes to recover after throwing it, those are the pitchers you're really going to notice take real jumps in their careers, while the rest of them have complete drop-offs. The pitchers that need that long to recover from a pitch should not be throwing that pitch. Just from a pure health standpoint, get it out of the game for their own health. I think the umpire that should have the ability to determine if the hitters have a full swing is the second base umpire, because he's indirect, but I'd line him up with home plate umpire. Well, if you take the ball and strike call away from the home plate umpire, what is he focusing on? Well, he's got the pitcher to focus on a balk now, and now he can focus directly on foul tips. He can focus on the swing through the strike zone. He can focus on those types of issues. Bang bang plays at the plate. Say if somebody's stealing home, he'll have a better chance of making that correct call instead of focusing on, was that call a strike? Oh wait, somebody's stealing. Oh, he's safe, I think. We won't see those types of issues. Nachos, pizza, and ice cream at the stadium is awesome. I like going for a lot of the specialty items at the game, but of course, sometimes I just want to go cheap. Like, for instance, I told you guys yesterday I bought like 5 tickets, or 5 games, different games to go to for the Rangers next season. And because of the Black Friday deal, there was only $10 a ticket. They're not great seats, don't get me wrong, but when I want to go to 5 games and drive an hour and a half, 2 hours to get to the game, I don't necessarily want to spend an arm and a leg 5 different times. And sometimes when I go to those games, I might just get chicken wings, or I'll go to In-N-Out Burger before the game, but every now and again I'll go out there and get the 3-foot-long hot dog or something like that. Some really stadium only type of food. Fair food, you always go for like the turkey leg, the funnel cake, fried green tomatoes, stuff like that. Sometimes for the stadium, that's the place where you get the the really ginormous helmet ice cream. You get the really ginormous hot dog, those types of things. Let's say hypothetically San Antonio gets a baseball team before a football team. Where exactly would they build the stadium? Because San Antonio doesn't seem like a bigger city like San Antonio or like Houston or Dallas. San Antonio is a fairly big city. They've already got. Remember, they had the was it the Alamo Dome anyway? They still use that for monster trucks and rodeos. I think the nationals for rodeo, or for all of the rodeo are held at the Alamo Dome still. There's plenty of room to be able to build down there as well. There's a lot of areas around San Antonio as well that they could use, but that could be a good place in Texas for a team. But thank you guys for joining us tonight. Notice we got like 15 of you guys with us. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe. You notice down at the very bottom of the screen, right down at the very bottom, right over there, it says follow us at UpsideSN on Twitter in case you guys are unable to get one of the notifications from YouTube. A lot of times YouTube doesn't even put out a notification whenever I put out a video. I've noticed that as well. Some of my followers that I actually see in real life, my friends anyway, say, hey, they never know I posted a video because they never got a notification about it. Make sure you follow us at UpsideSN on Twitter. That way you guys are notified whenever we do go live, whenever we do post a video. Again, I'll make a couple of videos tonight for tomorrow since I'll be working all day. But I do try to respond to you guys when you do comment on those videos. Send us your comments, your questions. We'll try to get back to you as quick as we can. But thank you guys for joining us again tonight. And we'll see you guys tomorrow night. Again, 9 o'clock will be live for you guys through 10 o'clock tomorrow night. And then Friday as well. We won't have a live for you guys Saturday as far as a baseball one. We might do a game, though. maybe a basketball or a hockey game. We'll see. Haven't checked the schedule yet. And then Sunday, I'll be taking the morning off, get away from baseball, get away from sports, come back around 3 o'clock, hunker down, get up to date on everything that's happening. And then by 6 o'clock, I will be live with you guys going over the entire winter meetings with you. Between 6 to 11 is probably how far I will go on Sunday. So make sure you guys join us for that. Really appreciate the active chat yet again tonight. Thank you guys for joining us. Mark, Jose, Anthony, Bush Girl. I know a lot of you guys were in here tonight. Bryce as well. Thank you for joining us. Trying to scroll back and give you everybody a mention anyway. Who's on first? Edward, and Caleb. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. Make sure if you guys want to chat, send us a message. Don't be afraid. Have some fun. I mean, that's what this is all about. Sports are meant to have some fun and, of course, win championships. But we're not exactly playing for these teams. We get to have the fun part of the conversation. What happens to these teams? How they can improve the team? What pieces should they trade away? But make sure you hit that subscribe button. We'll keep you guys updated from the MLB, NBA, NHL, and the NFL. But thank you guys again for joining us. We'll see you guys again tomorrow night.